Hello and welcome to episode 130 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're your source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right, just a couple of regular dudes drinking some irregular beers, talking about Magic the Gathering, in particular, the online client, MTG Arena.
We're talking about some standard this week, the standard format, and
Woo!
what it's looking like right now, how we're liking it, and decks we are playing. But first, each episode we I did not write our new thing. As you know, we now drink one beer an episode. So we're bringing our interesting beer. We're going to drink it down and then see how it stacks up to the other beers that we have rated in the past. So with that, Jeff, what is on tap this week?
Okay, this week we have a fan favorite here, Bellwoods Brewery,
Hmm
with an IPA. Green Velvet IPA is what it's called. It's 7%. That's all I really know about it, but you were telling me something interesting just before we started.
Yeah, so I had just seen this as I was looking at the can, and it says it's carbonated with reclaimed CO2, and I thought that that was very strange. I've never heard of reclaimed CO2 before, as it is a gas, and I don't know, chemistry, I don't know. Um, but anyway, they have like a little barcode on the side, and you can check it out. And apparently, they use this thing from Earthly Labs, which is a process where they can harvest the spent CO2 that's used during the fermentation process, and then it kind of goes into a barrel, turns into a liquid, and then they could use that, turn it back into a gas, I guess, and then carbonate their beer with it. So this was the first beer they use this method with, and I think going forward, the rest of their beers will also do this. In pursuit to become carbon neutral, which I think is a big thing breweries like to do, and or at least have their one carbon neutral beer, whatever. Fat
Yeah,
Tire is carbon neutral, which is what New Belgium was working towards. So yeah. Anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. Um,
sounds very cool.
Great job, Bellwoods. Heck yeah, save the planet, drink some beer. Um, let's get this one open and going. Ooh. So Jeff, have you had this one before?
I don't know.
Okay.
I've tried like a lot of different Bellwoods beers, usually at Bellwoods itself.
Yeah,
And so that's kind of whatever they happen to have on tap at that time thing. This
totally.
one might be after I left Toronto. I don't know.
I it
Since it
looks
sounds like it's pretty recent.
Yeah, it seemed kind of new to me. I've been drinking it as I live right next to Bellwoods Brewery, so this is a one I've had, or I used to get a lot more. Um, but anyway, cheers. We have some magic news. I'm gonna drink a sip before I get into it, but mm, we have the Arena Championship #4 is this weekend, October 7th and 8th. The formats are Wilds of Eldraine Limited and Historic.
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah. Um, the weird thing, though, about this, so we make that sound because we don't talk about Historic on this podcast anymore, just because of yeah, we have our own feelings about that format and the cards that are in it, or added to it, or made for it. Um, with that being said, Jeff, did you know they still make alchemy only cards? Did you know that?
Uh, I think if you asked me, do they still do that? I would have said yes, but I was not like actively aware. I would have guessed because I didn't hear some big hubbub of them stopping it.
Yeah, because they
But
would
I
have
but I wouldn't
probably.
be like, oh, I can tell you which cards were in the last one they did and the one before that. Like I haven't paid attention to them. So
Well, the thing is,
if you told me they stopped it, I would have been like, oh, didn't notice.
well, the reason I say this is because the last time they had new alchemy cards was All Will Be One, which was a while ago.
Oh, but it's
So
because they did that other thing, right? This is the mini set after Mom.
yeah, so basically,
So they didn't do an alchemy for that.
yes. So the
And
alchemy
then oh yeah, and then Summer had no new set. So
exactly. So it was they just did it for All Be One. The devs were working to put the aftermath cards in for March of the Machine, and then the Lord of the Rings set is like an alchemy set essentially because
yeah, no need
of
for
that.
an alchemy
No need to
only
add
version.
extra cards to that. Um, but the alchemy cards for Eldraine arrive on October 10th, which is this is classic arena scheduling where the big championship is right before new cards come into the format. So instead of like a little bit after, these cards should have
It's
come
just
out
like definitely
two
the
weeks
wrong way
ago.
to do it.
Like, so stupid. Um, really, really a great way to just like poke holes in the draft of what you're trying to build or whatever. It's like, hey, be excited about your favorite players playing in the arena championship, and it's different,
Yeah.
and the deck doesn't matter anymore, and there's a new deck. I don't get it.
Yeah. We've been through this before, but the quick rundown is if you release the cards right before the big tournament, the pros don't have enough time to play test and get the best deck. If you release it right after, then nobody cares about the pro decks because they're immediately made obsolete like
Mhm.
2 weeks after the tournament. To me, the second one is much stronger than the first. I understand not wanting to you want to give your pro players a positive experience, but you also want to give everyone else a positive experience.
Mhm.
And I think the pro players like trying to adapt in 2 weeks and come up with something sounds super fun. So
Exactly.
like they might
Also,
be pissed off that they didn't find the perfect deck in 2 weeks and solve the format, but hey, that's to me that's another plus. The format isn't
it,
solved immediately.
exactly. Um, so this feels bad.
I wouldn't even care if they gave the pros, like the people who are going to be competing in the event, let them see the cards first, and then they have 3 weeks to brew with it, kind of thing. But you
but they don't
can't
get to
play it
play
on
them.
Arena. But you get to
Interesting.
like, what deck should I be building towards? Because I think this card's going to be really good in it. And then they
Mhm.
have 2 weeks to see if that was true. Um, that could be really interesting. Of course, they're worried about leaks, but all the cards always get leaked anyways. Like,
That's true.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So when we first started this podcast, they used to specifically schedule things so that the big tournament was a place where they could preview cards for the next set, thinking that they'd have enough people watching the tournament that would be a great place to preview spoilers and stuff to get people hyped
Mhm.
or get people that want to see spoilers watching the tournament. That never happened. It was always a bad thing. If people want to see spoilers, they'll be posted on Twitter anyway, so it doesn't matter. Um,
Yeah.
it's just like, so this is the old logic. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out again because
Like
this is,
imagine if we couldn't play Worlds decks right now, or that like they just weren't relevant because a new set had come and like
mhm.
changed. Like right now, that's
Like,
essentially what it is.
yeah, it is.
We just
Um,
talked about how awesome some of these Worlds decks were last week,
mhm.
and now we wouldn't be able to play them because
Yeah,
the format would have changed. Like
it would have been the week we're trying to talk about the decks. They're already,
right, yeah,
so it's just
we would
like,
have been. Well, why would we talk about these decks? They're old
exactly.
news.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's a quick little tangent about that. So anyway, that is that. Something to look forward to. The qualifier weekend is October 21st and 22nd, which is standard. Um,
Woohoo!
so this is a reason to play standard. This is a reason to listen to this podcast right now because we're going to be talking about how we're feeling about the set and what decks you should be playing. Spoiler alert: it's probably not the one that I've been playing.
Definitely not the ones that I've been playing. So
But we will get to those a little bit later. But before we jump right into like tiers and decks and all that kind of stuff, Jeff, I just want to know how's your week been with Magic? We haven't asked this question in a long time, and I thought
yeah,
this would be the best time to do it. How'd it go?
good week. Good week.
Hmm.
I played more than I normally would.
Nice.
Um, my son's been sleeping well, getting
Oh,
into a bit
good.
of a routine. Lets me wake up a little early and get some games in, um, which has been awesome. Although the story of the week has been like I've been playing events
Hmm.
because I've loosely been considering seeing if I can make the stars align for that qualifier weekend, and so I need some play-in points. I know what they're
Hmm.
called. Um, I think I need like two. I'm two 5-0s out. I think I have 12. So I've been chasing the elusive 5-0, and I've gotten plenty of 4-1s, but no 5-0s. And it's very difficult because it feels like it's almost impossible to get through a whole league without at least conceding one match to having to
Hmm.
go put my son back to sleep when he wakes up. He always finds pinnacle moments in the match to wake up and
Classic.
start screaming, and I have to run
Hmm.
upstairs. By the time I get back down, it's like, you've lost. So that is going to make it pretty difficult actually to get that 5-0, but I've been having a lot of fun and actually been doing pretty well, in large part because I'm playing mostly against the same deck. Uh,
Okay.
a pretty strong majority of the time, but I think that's just been like, maybe it's the time of day I'm playing. I don't know, but it's just
Yeah.
that's just been me. I think I haven't seen that reciprocated elsewhere.
Gotcha. Interesting. I have also had similar feelings, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Um,
Mhm.
but I've also been able to play quite a bit more than normal as everything has calmed down since my wedding and everything. Been able to like get back into normal life and do things. And I actually got to play some paper magic this week, which is fun.
Ooh,
Yeah, our play group is now doing like first Monday of the month. We're going to this bar that's like right by my apartment and drafting just in a bar, which is nice. Feels very on brand. Uh, and I was very sad that my like Golgari rares I found and drafted did not do well.
what?
Yeah,
That deck always kills it.
yeah. So it was disappointing. I ended up after the draft seeing that the guy right next to me was also playing Golgari rares he got. So I was like, oh
Ah,
geez. I was like, how did this
that sounds
happen?
like pretty unfortunate. Just
It
like
was,
the way the packs fell, a lot of green and
yeah,
black rares to adjacent players.
which is so strange. Like pack three, I opened a Bitter Blossom, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Mm.
And it always killed me whenever I played it. I would play it too, like I'd only draw it late, and it was just kind of a bummer.
Right.
But it was still fun. It's always great to like drink beers and play some Magic with friends. So that was really awesome. But as far as Arena goes, I have to say I have been doing very badly.
Oh, it's getting ready to brush off the shoulder there.
Yeah, no, it hasn't been going well. I've been switching. I was I was playing a certain deck and I switched up a couple times, and all of them have been really rough. I don't know what's happening, but the chips are not falling in the right spots. I'm sure it has a lot to do with me, but for whatever reason, I'm not in the groove yet. So I'll get back there. I'll get there, but it's been a hard one this week.
There's always drawdowns, man. There's always
Exactly.
drawdowns.
Anyway, Jeff, where should we start? Do we want to talk about the decks that are like everywhere and the best, or do we want to talk about decks we like? What's?
I say we hit the big names, the decks you're
Mhm.
going to run into. We don't have to go through a full tier list and talk about a bunch of decks that I'm not even really seeing, to be honest. Again, I
Yeah.
just want to talk about some fun decks. Again, like, I'm not locked into the Twitter community like I was when we maybe started the podcast. I don't really know how people feel about stuff. Sorry, X community.
Get out of here
Um,
with that.
sorry, Elon. I
Yeah,
apologize
yeah,
for
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um, I don't know how people feel about it, but I am a little bit sort of like, I have in my Reddit feed, there's a lot of Magic stuff in there,
Yeah.
obviously. And it seems like a general sentiment or a meme that I keep running into is how it's just a Sheoldred format. And like, oh, standard's just four Sheoldreds all the time. And I was just like, it's not only not what I'm seeing, but B, I want to convince you that this is actually a pretty diverse metagame with a lot going on. And you can play a lot of fun stuff and actually win games. Like, the best decks aren't so good that there's no room for anything else, despite
Hmm.
what people might claim about Sheoldred. Um, so I actually think this is a super awesome standard like metagame right now.
Hmm.
And so part of my goal is to help convince people of that. So we can go through
Okay.
the hits. What are people like? What are you gonna run into? And then like,
Hmm.
what are the wonky stuff that you could play that still actually works and is like pretty awesome? And I
All
have a
right.
couple that I know you are gonna love. So
Oh, well,
um,
that will be very helpful because I think today is Zach needs a deck, or
yeah. Oh,
Zach needs a second deck. Zach has a deck that he's working on, but he needs another one to feel good
yeah.
about himself so that he can get beat up on with the deck that he really likes. Um, because I think that's where I am right now. Um, but anyway, so number one deck, what's the deck that you keep running into every single league or event, sorry, that you're just either
Okay.
like sick, this is happening, it continues to happen, or this sucks? Yeah, you like it? You like the
Um,
matchup?
yeah. So it's not really fair to say I run into the same deck every time, but I've
Hmm.
run into five color. Like it's been like 75% of the time. Like
Really?
usually my first match of a league is like anything goes. Who knows what the
Hmm.
hell you're playing against in the
That's
first
true.
match of
That's
a
true.
league? But then like 2 through 4 always seems to be it's a five color deck, it's a five color deck, it's a
Hmm.
five color deck. Now sometimes that's just the classic ramp deck. Sometimes that's the um like weirdo kind of control version that
Hmm.
emerged at Worlds. Sometimes it's the Cascade version. Um, I think personally, the tier one like best version of that is just the classic ramp deck, the
Hmm.
like domain ramp that we've seen. That Reed Duke, for example, might be the guy you'd go steal the list from, or Elite Cassis if you really like that enchantment that makes the game easier for me to win. Um,
Are you talking about Up the Beanstalk?
yes, that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Reed Duke. Yeah, are they all on the
But
same
Ely
list?
plays 4 and Reed
Oh, and
plays
Reed
2.
plays. Gotcha.
Yeah.
2+1, but yeah, I think. Um,
Yeah.
I.
That I think is definitely it's just tier one. Like sometimes when they do their thing, you're like, wow, that is insane. Like you
Mhm,
answered everything I did while ramping and then just slapped some unbeatable buff. Like, yeah.
mhm,
Like, fact that you're able because of the like the removal is kind of they're cheating essentially by
mhm,
playing a the best 1 mana removal spell of all time.
mhm.
Like 1 mana
And
removal shouldn't be able to do that.
and drawing a card.
Yeah. um, they're able to ramp and deal with
Mhm,
your threat. Usually the ramp deck is like we're ramping and we're just shields down,
yeah,
or we're killing your stuff, but then we're not ramping. This deck is like, now I'm gonna do when it has its nut draw, it's gonna do both.
both.
And
Yeah.
it's very hard to like beat that. But I don't think it doesn't do that often actually. Usually it is kind of playing this typical ramp game where it's just ramping into big stuff.
Yeah, it's been interesting because this version that I've been running into is less about Sheoldred, and I end up losing to herd migration, or the it just always seems to happen that I'm in a situation where it's like I've answered everything, we're at parity, everything's cool, and then they can slap a herd migration down, um, because I've spent too many resources on their stupid angel. Um,
Yeah, the angel. Like I didn't even know these decks play Sheoldred anymore. I've just been
did I say
seeing it's all
Sheoldred?
like
I meant
yeah,
to say Atraxa. I'm
Atraxa.
sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
apologies. A
I was like, I
different
never lose to Sheoldred in this
in this day. No, no, no,
matchup.
no, no, no. Sorry, my apologies. Yeah, Atraxa. I think they're running less copies because this deck used to be people would just run into. They just try to like ramp into Atraxa as soon as possible and think they won the game, and then you'd be able
Yeah.
to just be like, you
Like, okay,
don't
you drew a bunch
win
of
the
cards, but all your deck does is ramp into
yeah
Atraxa, so those cards aren't that good.
yeah, and then I'm
And I
like,
just kill your Atraxa.
yeah, go for the throat, attack for the win. Like, okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that has not been the case anymore, and I don't like it. Um,
yeah. They've gotten better because of that. Like
yeah.
they re- they've had to evolve, and now the deck is a little more like just able to win games. Like you
Hmm.
generally I find losing to like honestly the Wandering Emperor
Hmm.
plus the Angel, like that kind of stuff. Where
Yeah.
you're trading blow for blow, they wipe your board, and then they have like herd migration. Sometimes you lose to that.
Hmm.
But usually I'm just losing to them kind of playing mid-rangey. I have a ton of mana
Hmm.
game plan. There's a lot of ways to end the game that way.
Yeah.
Um,
That's been what I've been dealing with as well. It's just kind of like, and a lot of standard in general has been a bunch of mid-rangey kind of stuff. And when we have
yeah,
control decks pulling back into a mid-range plan and aggro decks pulling up into a mid-range plan, I feel like it's kind of
yeah,
just been happening a lot. So
yeah,
this, I have not enjoyed playing against this deck. When I see it, I'm like, damn it. But that's
You should play Anvil.
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
That is a deck I haven't tried playing yet, so uh, that would
There's
probably
nothing
be a
quite
thing.
like your opponent playing that angel and targeting something that's an artifact.
You're like, oh, sacrifices.
Ooh, you
Um,
haven't played against my deck often.
yeah,
You
you
lose.
don't know this. Yeah.
You're
Would
actually
really.
supposed to bolt the Voldaren Epicure there, believe it
Mhm.
or not.
Or my face.
Or my face, but I'm at like 28, so
Yeah, so
they never think to do that.
hey, every point counts.
Yeah.
Um, but but yeah, I think if you're playing five color, you don't. This is the one you want to play. Um,
I think so. I mean, unless you just think the Cascade deck's really cool, or
that's true.
you're
If you,
just like an Azorius control mage at heart kind of thing. Like there, play whatever deck you want. But if you were
mhm,
just like, what's the best one that's going to win the most matches? I would say just go classic ramp.
mhm, absolutely. Other deck, obviously, that's been terrorizing standard meta for a long time. One that we thought was like very chill in the summer and has emerged probably because of us. I'm pretty sure it's because of us.
Yeah, I was gonna say another way to look at that is since we did those episodes,
Yeah,
like this deck has just been everywhere.
exploded, which is Demir midrange
Yeah,
um, in various flavors. There's a bunch of different kinds, um, and you can kind of mold it to whatever you would like it to be, which is the cool part of the deck and why we see it all the time, and why it also feels like it's everywhere to me
yeah,
because there's you could play like Demir mid range. There are ones that are a little bit more black focused and go a little more aggressive. There's ones that are a little bit more control focused that are using more of kind of the ones that we were building or tempo focused. And then you also have this new fairy variant, which
mhm,
is at the same time uses a bunch of the same cards. So it's sometimes you don't even realize you're playing against the fairy one until you start seeing a couple of their fairy spells. But like a lot of the other cards in it just feel like this is just Demir midrange again until all of a sudden
yeah,
you're like, oh, they're playing like the fairy fencing card or like the fairy counterspell. And you're like, oh shit, this is a different matchup than I thought it was. But then they'll still
yeah.
slap Sheoldred and stuff on you. So,
Right. I was gonna say this is the Sheoldred that people complain
mm-hmm.
about. Um, it's still pretty much the same deck. It got the Virtue. That's quite a
Yeah,
strong card. It's like a
it's
huge addition to this deck, actually. Um,
I think it's
Mostly it.
like that and the fairies. If
Right. Yeah, the fairy
depend,
variant's obviously brand
yeah,
new. But like the classic one that we looked at pretty much
hmm
just got the Virtue. I don't even know if people are playing Beseech the Mirror anymore. I think that was kind of
yeah. I think
a
that
week
card.
one thing.
Yeah, it's not super great.
The old 8 Sheoldred
Hmm
dream, and then people are like, wait, Sheoldred's not
that,
something I want 8 of
yeah,
in
I
my
don't need
deck.
this many. I don't even need one.
Yeah.
Um, as opposed to Virtue is very good, and it does
Yeah.
give you the extra copies of Sheoldred because you're getting them back from the graveyard, and
Yeah.
your opponent's copies too. So this deck ends up being when I was playing against it, and it felt like I was constantly doing this. Was like I have to exile creatures from my graveyard so my opponent doesn't kill me with them. Ended up being a scenario that happened multiple times. Um,
Yeah, I think the interesting thing, even within the deck, is okay, I'm going to slam Graveyard Trespass or whatever. Automatic thing to do is exile your opponent's best creature from their graveyard.
mhm.
But then you have to take a step back and be like, wait, do I want to do that? Because I may get the
I have
Virtue
my
online.
Virtue. Yeah.
And so maybe I actually need that card in their graveyard.
hmm
And so I can only imagine, I haven't played this deck, so I can only imagine what the mirror match is like, where you're like, but they have
Like,
Virtue.
mhm. So
Uh,
I think the mirror match plan is side out all of your Shieldreds and bring in the Blue Sun's Twilight to steal their
mhm.
Shieldreds and use your virtues to steal their Shieldreds out of the graveyard if they don't do the same plan as you. And
I
then
was
you
gonna
end
say
up
now I'm just imagining like blue-black control mirrors that all have
mhm.
like creature removal and no creatures.
And basically then all you're doing is trying to beat each other with Fairy Mastermind, and that's the entire game.
Of course,
Is
yeah.
stealing each other's masterminds.
Mhm.
Which is also super weird. Especially because having a bunch of masterminds on your side of the battlefield is really bad if they slam a Sheoldred, because then you die. So it's like it ends up getting into weird
Mm,
spaces. Um,
yeah, really. This is one of the stranger like mirror match decks we've seen in a while, where
mhm.
because they've gone a little bit back to these asymmetric cards that are like both players. I heart you, and aid myself,
Yeah, yeah.
and like the fairy mastermind. Everything is really that two-way street. I imagine the mirror match is so interesting.
I think it hurts my brain, and I wasn't even playing true mirror matches of it. Um,
Yeah,
because one of the decks I've been playing is Shota Yasuoka's
yeah,
Fairies deck. Because I wanted to test it out, because I wanted to see what it was like with the mana base and uh, having the cottage and everything.
yeah,
And I actually was recently thinking that, like, remember when we were saying how the blue red creature land is the best one because it's the cheapest one?
yeah,
I also realized that it's the one that super dies to cut down, and the other ones
yeah,
don't necessarily. We see the cottage the most, and then I've seen the white black one, the restless fortress, which does get cut down. Um, but thinking about that is also an aspect of, oh, that's also bad because black is so strong and cut down is everywhere.
yeah.
Getting stone drained for 1 mana sucks.
Well, I was
Um,
talking about modern. I don't know what you're
oh,
talking
for
about.
sure, yeah, totally, because we talk about modern on this podcast
Yeah,
all the time.
exactly.
Yeah,
And legacy.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm starting to just think the cottage is the best one.
I think so too. Um, Also, because now we're in these weird mirrors where having the cottage actually is how you start exiling cards from graveyards, and then you get food back, so you can live with the Sheoldred on the battlefield on your opponent's side by eating your food and exiling cards, so their virtue doesn't do anything. Um, Obviously, it's not instant speed, which is the best way to deal with the virtue, so that you can target the thing that they're targeting on their upkeep. But
Yeah.
it ends up coming up enough times.
Hmm.
Though, of course, in that scenario, you have to chump attack into their Sheoldred with your cottage, but whatever.
Right.
That might come up. Who knows?
But you get a food.
As you do get food.
Yeah, sidebar on the cottage.
Hmm.
So no surprise, I've been playing a lot of Anvil lists.
Hmm.
I've played some other stuff, but mostly Anvil. Trying to find. I have like 4 different ways
Oh,
to take Anvil, and I'm trying to figure out which one's the best one.
did you do it? I'm interested. Keep going. Sorry.
Okay, but it's not going anywhere near where you think it's going.
Okay. All right.
So
Cool. All right. Right. Right.
um, I was playing against somebody who was playing something it's the deck when I said the tortoise was bad, and you were like, "Oh, I assumed you had some weird Sultai brew that's all about like like milling yourself with
Hmm.
reanimating lands and stuff." I was playing against that. It
Hmm.
was like Cruel Somnophage and like the Lurgoyf that care about creatures in your graveyard and all self-mill. I was sitting there like, man, my opponent has a badass deck.
Hmm.
Um, but we were in an epic match. I have essentially, I'm like, there's pretty much no way I can lose. I think I have this locked up. I have my anvil. I had like either 3 or 4 copies of Ob Nixilis in play. And um, we're just like going to town on this. My opponent's at a very low life total, but then they stick a Ren. I don't even run an 8. No, it wouldn't have been Ren an 8. Whatever the newest Ren is, the 3 mana Ren.
Oh, sure.
Um,
Ren redeemed. Ren and the World
yeah,
Breaker.
and they were activating their cottage every turn, which gave it vigilance.
Hmm.
And the cottage just says when it attacks, it creates a food. So they didn't have to, they would get the food every turn. That was like keeping them alive when they weren't spending any mana
Hmm.
on activating the cottage. And then they were just like top decking blockers and like top decking big creatures at this point in the game. And they like slowly whittled down my Ob Nixilises. And I'm sitting there with like, they're at 2, and I have an anvil, but I can never get them because they're just getting this food token every turn. And eventually they were kind of forced to attack into my Blood Tithe Harvester. And I was like, snap block that fucking cottage. and then I was able to win after like a few turns later. But I was like, man, this cottage wren thing is pretty cool. The
That,
fact that they still get the trigger even though they're not paying for the cottage. It's upsetting.
mhm. That's
Because they only had like 5 lands. They couldn't do it all.
mhm.
Otherwise, they really needed that Ren. Although they weren't able to ultimate the Ren, even though it was at like 10, because they needed the food token to survive every turn. It was very fun. It was a very fun
That
game.
that sounds fantastic, and I want to remember exactly the wording on that. That Ren of the Realm Breaker, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that is awesome. uh, that's great. Also, now I'm realizing there's no Ren and 8. It's yeah, but I understand now.
Oh
That
yeah,
deck
not yet. Not yet.
not yet. Technically, Ren and the
This
Realm
was I
Breaker
was thinking
would
this
be
is Ren and A. Yeah,
yeah.
but
Is that I think that's the code name for it now,
right.
and I'm going to just adopt that. Um,
Yeah, because we talk about that card so often.
we do.
So,
I so often I had to look it up because I couldn't remember what it was.
yeah. Oh
But
yeah, I should have mentioned it animates a land as one of its abilities.
yeah,
That's
the +1 animates the land
yeah.
and gives it hexproof,
Yeah.
and makes it a 3/3. That makes more sense. Um, because I was like, how did your Blood Tithe Harvester kill a cottage? His cottage. I was like, he must have had a +1/+1 counter on it. But anyway,
Nope.
all makes more sense now. Well, that deck does seem pretty sick, and I need
Yeah.
I need some fun stuff that wins. You know what? So that's the hard thing. And this is a classic Magic player issue, but like I need a fun deck that wins games. And right now
Yeah.
I have a fun deck that loses a lot, and then decks I thought were going to win games that also lose a lot.
Oof. I thought you were gonna say, unfun deck that
or
wins games.
or maybe I'm just not picking I'm picking decks that still look fun. I think that's actually what it is. I'm just lying to myself saying that the decks are like, "Oh no, these are the good decks." Are in
Yeah.
fact not good.
Mm.
Which is
Been there.
yeah, it's I mean, like it's a spectrum. You're constantly in these situations where you're going back and looking at decks, being like, oh well, this is the best deck, and blah blah, and then you play it, and you're like, wow, this is so hard. I am still not winning games. Why is this happening? Um, I think the other deck we should probably talk about before we get into other things is like Golgari midrange, because this is one
Yeah.
we did talk about last week a little bit because it did well, and we were expecting this deck to be huge in the metagame. And when I think about standard, I think about this deck and I think about Demir,
Mhm.
but just Mosswood Dread Knight just being everywhere.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think of this deck probably in like the grand scheme of the metagame. This deck is doing similar things to the stock, like non-fairy, just the standard mid-range version of blue black,
mhm,
but probably like on the balance doing them a bit worse
mhm,
because like the blue black has access to counter spells for
yeah,
some of the big threats that domain has. That
mhm,
being said, in what I play, this deck is better. Like it's harder for me to beat them than it is blue black because the counter spells don't matter to me.
mhm,
So this is the deck I'm not interested in seeing very much because um, they're quick to deploy to the board, so I don't really get that get under them advantage,
mhm,
and they just have card for card a way higher power level than me. When I play against blue black, it's a lot of like holding up make disappears and shit, and I'm like, okay,
mhm,
full Darren Epic here.
mhm.
Are you gonna
Do
counter it?
you
Like,
want to?
literally don't care.
Mhm,
I'm plan on playing 3/1 drops this turn, so up to you.
mhm.
Um, this deck, I'm just like, oh man, they played like a 3/2 on turn 2.
Yeah,
That really stymies me.
a 3/2 with trample,
Yeah.
which is really rough.
Well, I just have a board of 1/1s, right? So I'm like, well,
Exactly.
they're all my free early damage just out the window.
Yeah.
Uh,
Also,
I think,
your chump blocks are gone, which is
yeah, yeah,
or
right,
your
right.
block
Like
your
the old N
or your
block
block.
anvil sack
Yeah, exactly.
nonsense. Yeah.
Not great.
Yeah. So against me, this deck is better. So I think the perspective is this is a mid-range dex. It's going to share a lot of cards with Demir because black is like the strong color kind of in
Hmm.
both decks. Um, but you're gonna have trade-offs for different matchups. This is gonna be probably better against aggro, uh, but a little worse, I imagine, against domain ramp. But
Yeah, I guess I didn't really think about that very much. I just think that um, I have actually been playing this deck when I was thinking about it the most, and specifically the Mosswood Dread Knight when I've been playing. Spoilers: this is the deck I've been playing most. Is my my brew. This is the first season I've been brewing.
ooh, I love it.
I know it is. It's been foreshadowed. This is
Yeah,
the deck we talked about. I'm trying to make the Ariet Esper Ariet auras work.
I love
Um,
it.
but when my 3-drop is a 2/4 that cleanly blocks your Mosswood Dread Knight, it feels so
Right.
good.
Yeah.
um,
Meanwhile, I'm like, what the fuck? 3
yeah,
2 for 2?
and I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter. Block it, and
Yeah.
then whatever.
But if
So
they play a fairy mastermind, you're like, son of a
yeah,
bitch.
just this fucking card. Um, yeah, that is frustrating. Um, but no, I think this. I do think that the counterspell issue is a big problem with this deck, because Mosswood is really bad against counterspells, because it looks like you can play this card forever because you like, adventure it and then you play it and then it dies and then you get to play it again from your graveyard and do
Right.
that. But as soon as you counter one part of this card, it's gone forever. And they're
Yeah,
like,
it's actually good design that way because
mhm,
it shouldn't be unstoppable, kind of like the
exactly.
inevitable tide kind of thing. It should be like there. I like how it's very specific time windows and it's
Hmm.
often awkward to use it mana wise, but you
Yeah.
just kind of have to.
Hmm.
Um,
Also, there's the other things that, like, if it dies on your turn and you don't have the mana to put it on an adventure, your opponent can not only exile it from your graveyard to get rid of it, but they can also steal it with the virtue so that you
yeah,
can't use it as well. Um,
yeah, that's
which
what I
I,
mean. So it's very
yeah.
specific on
Hmm.
the timing and everything, right?
Yeah.
Um, if I
So,
were choosing, I would choose this deck over Demeanor just because it's more my style. I also
mhm.
think it's going to be interesting when spoiler alert, when Atraxa or whatever big creature Tali becomes uncounterable, um,
Hmm.
with the release of the new set.
Yeah,
How interested you are in Demir over Golgari at that point?
that's true. Sorry, you're talking about a new giant dinosaur, is what you're talking about.
No,
Probably.
no, no,
No?
no. I'm talking about Domain Ramp just putting a copy of Cavern of Souls in their deck and
Oh, that's what
making
you meant.
Atraxa uncounterable. Yeah.
Copy that. Sorry,
But
I
there's
did.
probably also going to be something new in the set that is uncounterable.
Sorry,
That's
I
also
thought
going to.
I thought we were just going into like crazy theory crafting land. No, you're
No,
actually
no,
talking.
no, it's something I
Okay.
know for sure is coming. But probably what you're saying is also
Mhm.
going to be true.
That's true. Sorry, we should. So, Cavern of Souls, if you don't know, it's a really important card that was in Modern, and this is going to be the first standard reprint since it was printed
Yeah.
in Modern. So they've decided that this card should be in Standard, and more importantly, should be in Pioneer. Um,
Which is funny because another random tangent. When they released this card, they basically issued an apology letter being like, we know this is against design philosophy and whatever, but like, here's why we're doing it. And it was like, new players don't like their big spells getting countered. Like, they had to release a whole thing when they printed this card the first time to just be like, we're sorry, we know it's going to piss you off, but we think this is good for the game kind of thing. And so
I
now they're like, this card needs a reprint desperately. It's so beloved. So it's just funny how magic works.
That is so weird. For those of you who don't know, sorry, we don't always read cards on the podcast because we're
Right.
talking about
This one we
standard
should
cards,
because
but this
it's
one we
new.
should. So, it's new, yeah, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Cavern of Souls is a land, and when it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type. It taps for a colorless, and then you can tap to add a color a mana of any color, but you can only spend that on creature spells with the chosen type, and those spells can't be countered.
Yeah.
So it's a way for tribal decks or creature type decks, um, to be able to push through their more important creatures, or it's a way to have one specific creature that you want to make sure doesn't get countered to be pushed through. Um,
Yeah. Like something with an incredible ETB ability,
yeah.
maybe.
Um,
Um,
so that's interesting. I did not think about doing that. I wonder if having Cavern of Souls in your 5 color deck that only says like Praetor will be an issue. Um,
yeah,
but
that's why I was
Dinosaur
saying
wouldn't be so
dinosaur
bad,
kind
yeah,
of works. Yeah.
because you have,
The stomper.
yeah, they're playing the Stomper already, the Topiary Stomper. So interesting
But anyway, like even if it's not in the domain ramp deck, it's opens the door for Atraxa
for
decks in general that are maybe
blue
just
being bad.
3 or 4 colors. Um,
It makes
yeah, and also just like it makes make this appear a lot less exciting
very bad,
over the Dread Knight.
as well as the fairies counterspell as well. Interesting. This is not exactly what we were going to be talking about this episode, but it does
Yeah.
make me more excited for mono white humans as well. So
Mm-hmm.
it'll give that a big boost because that has been a deck I've been looking at now. With should I just be playing mono white humans? Should I just be like just doing that again? I haven't played mono white in a long time, so
Yeah, I
I
think
feel
it's still
like
good, man.
yeah, I'm gonna play mono white plus Fox. Basically, that'll be the deck I'm gonna be playing. Um,
Yeah. But I think those are the top like 3, quote unquote. But I think there's a
mhm,
ton of great decks that
yeah.
are competitive, super competitive with those. You have Esper Control if you're a control player. There's
Hmm.
just an old school control list that
Hmm.
exists. That's Esper. You can play mono red. Mono red's still around. Mono white humans.
Hmm.
Mono red actually got like Godric, and the Kumano into Godric is like a god draw for them. It's like kind of crazy.
So good.
Yeah, mono white humans showed up at huge numbers at Worlds. Like
Hmm.
a lot of people did really well with it. Esper Legends won Worlds,
Hmm.
and then you could still play some other like there's still Celestia enchantments. That's a real deck. Soria's
Hmm.
soldiers. Like basically, if you want to play control, you could play control. If you want to play aggro, you can play aggro. And if you want to play mid range, well, you're in luck because
There are
just
so many
throw a
kind.
dartboard at the list of standard, a dart at the
Uh,
list of standard decks,
yeah,
and you'll probably hit a mid range deck. But
yeah. Just take a wheel and like spin it, and then spin it
yeah,
again, and pick which colors you want, and then there's a mid range deck for that.
yeah,
Um, but Jeff, I want something new. I need some new
okay,
decks. I need some fresh feelings.
all right,
You give me something, and then I'll talk about a deck afterwards. But I need something from you.
okay. Hold on, I got some stuff for you.
Okay, I'm
But
excited.
before I do, I should give proper like attribution.
Okay,
Should attribute things properly.
okay, gotcha.
A lot of what I'm going to tell you, the next couple of decks that I'm going to talk about, is from Jim Davis.
Oh,
So
okay.
Jim Davis is recently like quickly became just one of my favorite content creators. So if you don't know who he
Amazing.
is, he actually played in Worlds.
Hmm.
He was part of Team Channel Fireball's team, so he was testing with like Reed Duke and stuff. He is a incredible Magic player, but his Magic content and streams are like exactly what you and I love. The first of all, he has a soundboard with a
Hmm.
ton of different sounds, and he's just using them super cheesy all the time,
Hmm.
like boo or like
Hmm.
da-da-da-da. And I just love that part of it. And he definitely overuses it, which I think is required.
Yeah.
Big old soundboard.
Very, very
Uh,
dad centric. He is also a dad, so
yeah, and every deck he plays is just like fun.
mhm.
You know, he'll still have a video or two of like, this is the deck that won Worlds, or this is what I played at Worlds. But what he's been doing recently on his YouTube channel is releasing decks we considered playing at Worlds,
Oh,
and they've been super fun. So he kind of takes you through the testing process a little bit. Now, to set the scene for this deck was something that I think he said a week before submission, there was a big Japanese tournament, and this deck went 3-0 drop. So the team was like, and it was a deck they'd never seen before. So the team was like, is this somebody who doesn't want their world's info leaked when they like 8-0 the
oh,
tournament or whatever?
yeah.
And so they started playing it. And he said they liked the deck, but they didn't have enough time to tweak it and like really learn all the ins and outs. And this is the one that I said you're gonna love.
Okay.
So So this deck is a Gruul deck built
Okay.
around a certain card called Picnic Ruiner. Now,
Okay. Yeah.
Picnic Ruiner, for those who don't know, is a 2 mana 2/2, and then whenever it attacks while you control a creature with power 4 or greater, gains double strike until end of turn.
Mhm.
Now there is basically this deck has the one track mind of we're gonna put Audacity on Picnic Ruiner. That makes it a 4/2 trample double strike. That's the deck. The rest of it is like Monstrous Rage, Monastery Swift Spear, Kumano faces Kakazan. You got your Questing Druid as the card advantage
Mhm.
engine. You top out at Meaglows just because like you're playing Gruul,
Mhm.
and you have some Godric's in there because it's Godric, and that's the whole deck. It's literally just like, hey, I'm
Oh my
Gruul
god.
Beatdown with this like combo of Picnic Ruiner plus Audacity
Oh.
and like Monstrous Rage 16 year. Like,
I love that
it's
so much. And I'm so mad because I'm so mad that I didn't even immediately think of that.
yeah.
That's so annoying because I love Audacity, and any creature with double strike is a creature that I'm like, oh,
Ooh,
maybe.
Audacity.
So like, why did I not put that together? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, that's so that's so awesome. Oh my god. Can you
Here, I'll
post
send
it?
it to you because I'll send it to you right now so you can take a look. But
Okay. But also
I
post it in our
can post it.
Discord.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a good chance. If you are interested in any of these decks or any things we're talking about, find our Discord. It's Arena Regulars. It's in the show notes below us. Come join it. It's free, and we just talk about Magic and stuff. So if you're looking for decks and things like that, this is the perfect Discord to join. Um, oh my gosh, this is so great. uh,
Now, I heard Jim talk a little bit about it. He said they really liked the deck, but were confused about no main deck protection spells. So
yeah.
that's what they would do is play protection. The first thing they would change is like I forget what card he said they were thinking of taking out, but
Hmm.
definitely they wanted to
Put in
wedge in some
Tameo's
protected
safekeeping
spells.
or
I think the X the
oh sure, Tyvar stand. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a great card.
just for that extra X punch on my double
That's
strike
true.
trampler.
So good. Uh, so I love that Jeff sent me an untapped link so I could look at this. But it's telling me how many cards how many wild cards I need to make the deck, which is fantastic. Thank you, Untapped, for knowing my
Yeah,
collection.
good
Um,
call.
but sick. Oh, it's so great. This is this is so awesome. Oh yeah, they're playing one Tameo safekeeping in the sideboard instead of Tyvar Sand. Interesting, strange,
Yeah,
but
like feels like at least one or two main deck, and then plus one or two more.
yeah. I mean, you know that my favorite thing is somebody tries to kill
But
my creature and I get to put a protection spell on it. It's like
oh
I
yeah, exactly.
yeah, um, fantastic. Well, this is the very aggressive. I think the aggressive aura deck that I need. Also
Mhm.
because Audacity works really well on a Swift Spear, also. As well as
Right.
questing druid. So all of this makes me
Yeah.
happy.
Even like just putting it on Meaglows or
Yeah,
uh, if you ever get the old turn 4 like Godric Audacity, that's a lot of damage.
that is a lot of damage in the air.
Yeah.
Um, that's sweet. Oh, sick.
Oh, it was rubies, I think. I think he said they don't think you need this many
Oh,
rubies.
take. Yeah, there's three. Yeah, Ruby is.
Like
I'm
it's a mana generator in a deck that tops out at 3, right?
mhm.
Like
I mean, it
it's a
is.
powerful card, but
Yeah. Uh, it. I don't know how I feel about Ruby, but it's okay. Um. Anyway, sweet, awesome. Love me a good Audacity deck. Um. So I don't actually have a deck list that I can easily share with you for the deck that I've been working on.
Hmm.
But we were talking about a white black Oris deck, splashing blue for Asinine Antics, so that you can have Ariad of the Charmed Apple on the battlefield, put Asinine Antics, make all of your opponent's creatures cursed. They can't attack you anymore, and you get to drain them every turn. I realized while I was building the deck that it's a much better, I believe, it's much better as a blue deck that splashes for the other colors. And I ended up going with blue, white, splash black for Ariat.
Gotcha.
So that most of your deck is um,
Surprise, surprise. Zach builds it as Azorius.
Azorius Aura's deck.
Yeah.
Um, but that means that you can like regularly play uh, Sleep Cursed Fairy on turn one,
Hmm.
which ends up being
Right.
really great for this deck because you really want something to put auras on that isn't easy to kill. Um, just to have auras out in the battlefield at the beginning of the game. And also realizing that in your deck, Asinine Antics is a lot better than Ariat because you
Right.
need because Asinine Antics does something on its own. It like stops you from dying. Ariat played on her own is really bad.
Right. Whereas when we theory crafted it, it felt like the opposite. But like the
Yes.
deck is an Ariat deck, and you're playing this Asinine Antics for the
Hmm.
Asinine combo.
Yeah.
Um, but the reality may be the opposite. That one's good when you're behind, and the other's terrible like when you're behind.
Yeah. And so currently the deck isn't in a place where I feel like it's good enough to really share with anybody, which is hence why I don't have the list specifically to send you. But I'm playing like Combat Research, which is our Curiosity in Standard, which I
Classic.
think I need a couple less copies of, um, because it's
Like
even
all the way
though
down to zero, maybe. Because
no, I think you should play one or two,
mm.
um, because it does give area +1/+1 and ward, which is nice. Um,
Oh right, forgot that. Yeah.
it gives like ward one, but it
Right.
does not give power bonuses to any of your creatures, which ends up being frustrating when you are attacking into a Rafine and your sleep cursed
Mm.
fairy can't kill the Rafine. And if your brain doesn't remember, like mine doesn't, um, the amount of times you're like, yeah, combat research. Oh no,
Get
I
in
can't.
there. And then they're like
Oh,
block.
you're like, oh fuck. Um, but the surprise card that's been helpful, there are two of them. So there's uh, the card Spellbook Vendor, which, if you don't remember, it's a 1 and a white for a 2/2 with vigilance. It's a human, and at the beginning of combat, you can pay one to put a sorcerer roll, sorry, on one of your creatures. So it's a way to just like put rolls out on your creatures very quickly.
I think
But
mono white humans plays that now. Maybe in the
it
sideboard, but I've seen it
mhm.
like in standard.
And so I think that that card ends up helping our deck quite a bit, as well as I don't remember the name of this card, but it's the like Raise Dead. It's 1 and a white, and you can return a creature with converted mana cost 3 or less, or mana value, sorry, 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, and you put a young hero roll on it, which
Oh,
it ends up
yeah.
being really good to get back your spellbook vendors, or you can get back your Sleep Cursed Fairy, and it gets back Ariat. So
Right.
anytime your creatures get destroyed, you can bring them back with that card, which is really nice.
Card just seems
However,
pretty good, to be honest.
it's pretty good,
Yeah.
except when you're playing against two specific decks. If you're playing against Domain Ramp, where they're exiling your cards underneath
Right.
their fucking enchantment, Leyline, it's terrible. And if you're playing against Control, where they're exiling everything, it becomes really bad. So then you
Right.
side those out. So then,
Bad against exile, obviously.
of course, um, and it's also annoying where I think it's good, but I don't think it's great because also when you play against Legends or any deck that's playing the Rat King, the turn, if you set up a turn where you like block to trade and then you're going to return your creature, they always slap the fucking Rat King on the table and then you lose it.
Oh
And you're
yeah,
like,
always.
Well,
Yeah.
this fucking sucks.
And
Um,
you should know that they always had the graveyard trespasser in those
yeah,
situations as well, even with
exactly.
a singleton copy in their deck. But
But the thing with the fucking Rat King is that they don't even have to attack. Every turn they get to exile something from your graveyard.
yeah,
And so then even if you play Ariette to block and like, bounce each other if they had a graveyard trespasser, they get to do it. I don't know. So that's really annoying.
yeah. The Rat King is very good.
Rat King's
I'm
good.
happy I like called that one out as
Hmm.
this card's actually good.
Yeah. Rat King's also good because when I do asinine antics your entire board, Rat King keeps making rats and then they can attack. And so that becomes really frustrating. And so you're like, well,
Still bought you a fair amount of time.
it did. It's true. It's true. But the two things really to note with this deck, follow the Discord, because I will post a deck list at some point, and it's probably soon. But like, I don't have a sideboard right now at all. But I'm currently playing.
Still in that phase, yeah.
Yeah, where I like when we go to sideboard games, I'm like, I know what cards to take out. I have nothing to put into this deck.
I don't want to rest, and that's all I put in my sideboards.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess you're
Actually,
Splash Black, so you're
I'm
like,
Splash
I
Black,
don't
so
want Invasion
yeah.
of Gobakons.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, Invasion of Gobakon is in the main deck currently. But I am playing the I don't really remember this card's called, but it's like Invasion of Gobakon, but it's a 1-mana curse that we called out in
Oh yes,
Innistrad.
Curse of Silence or something.
Yes.
I think it's just something like that. Yeah.
Where you name a card, and then whenever your opponent plays that card, it costs 2 more. And then when they play it, you can sacrifice your curse to draw a card. So that's in my sideboard, which sometimes helps, just like knowing, like, if you just play it and say Sheoldred, you're like, I don't have to worry about turn 4 anymore. I know it's not going to happen on turn 4, so that's okay. So also it helps you drain with Ariette. But Witness Protection, all-star in this deck, because you really want your opponents to lose all their abilities and be a 1/1. And then when you play Ariette, you start draining them and they can't attack anymore. You're like, this is great. This is so good.
Love that. Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun, but I have lost a lot.
Right.
So it needs
that's how like these brand new brews always start. Like a lot of losing.
But I do think there's some potential because there's so many decks that are playing creatures.
Right.
We aren't in a like control meta where like when you run into control, it's really rough. But at least we're base blue, so like I think we could have a sideboard plan for it.
Right. Get those asinine antics out of there. And even the control decks you run into, it's like Wandering Emperor and stuff. Like they still will have creatures on the battlefield. So
and they're playing like Wedding Announcement and stuff. So
right, yeah.
As long as you
if they're not pre-board, they're playing it post-board for sure. So
yeah. So anyway,
that's awesome. I love that you took that deck and just started building it. That's great. I can't wait to see the list.
So yeah, if you know the podcast, I almost never do this. So it's it's a special
I can't wait to see the list, so I could be like, Zach, you should be playing one more land than you are.
Probably, but that never comes up. That's never an issue.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that's awesome.
Anyway, Jeff, do you have any more surprises for us? Anything?
Yeah. So this is another Jim Davis reveal of something they almost played at Worlds. This one's spicy. So on Jim Davis's team, I don't know if he played in Worlds. He may have. He's an extremely good player, but he was part of the team. Was Sam Pardee.
Yeah, and
Sam Pardee is an extremely good player. He's known for a lot of things, but he's particularly known for playing combo decks and or like not your typical combo decks, I guess. The combo decks that are like kind of mathematical and what's the 1-mana enchantment that puts extra +1/+1 counters on everything?
Oh, Hardened Scales?
Yeah, like Hardened Scales and the whole Lego Arcbound Sack My Thing, like 30.
Oh, gotcha.
So that kind of shows up in this deck that they almost played, and it's called Cauldron Fling. So this deck is basically the combo is Agatha's Soul Cauldron and let me Voldaren Thrill Seeker. So if you have a
Okay.
Voldaren Thrill Seeker, which is the backup card that lets you fling it,
Oh, right.
if you have that under the cauldron, all of your creatures can fling themselves at the opponent. All of your
Oh,
creatures with counters on them can fling
yeah.
themselves at the opponent's face. So Voldaren Thrill Seeker, what
It's
does it
a
say
I
exactly?
it's a 2 and a red for a 1/1 with backup 2. So it enters. You can put 2+1/+1 counters on it. If another creature, uh, or you can give the ability to somebody else, and it has pay 1, sacrifice this creature. It deals damage equal to its power to any target.
Right. So if you have that under a cauldron, all of your creatures have that ability.
Yeah.
Then it's playing Ozolith, the Shattered Spire. If a
Mm-hmm.
+1/+1 counter would be put on an artifact or creature you control, that many +1 are put instead.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's playing all of these like garbage 1/1s that have modular, where they come into play with +1/+1 counters, and then when they die, they put their counters
On something
on
else.
something else.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is very reminiscent of Arcbound Ravager, where you put all these counters on something, you fling it at their face, that puts all the counters on something else, you fling that at their face, and like
And loop
ad
through all
nauseum
your creatures.
until they're dead.
Oh, I
Um,
I like that. I like that a lot more. Uh, did you play any of the Cauldron decks we talked about last week?
play it myself? No.
Yeah.
Play against it once or twice. It was pretty easy victory. But
Yes. I played the mono blue version like I said I was going to, and it was awful. It was
yeah,
what this deck does and what those decks don't do is that Agatha's Soul Cauldron I think is really good when you only need one creature underneath the cauldron for it to work. When
right.
you need 3 creatures under the cauldron, it is impossible. Like I
Right.
played the deck all night and not once was I able to put the combo together. So I think
Yeah.
that this deck sounds so much better. Like so much better.
Yeah.
Like
And
but
the interesting thing about this is like Agatha's Soul Cauldron cares about +1/+1 counters, and a lot of these things, like, you can kind of do it. This deck is like, it's a +1/+1 counter deck, and
yeah,
the Cauldron's just kind of in there, um, which I think is so cool about the
it's
design of this, is like, we have this combo, but we're really adding that combo in
mhm,
to a deck that's doing its +1/+1 counter thing,
mhm,
which is the kind of combo that I love. I love like creature
mhm.
combo decks where you can play a normal game and then you have this like oops I win button.
Yes. I think we agree on that fairly strongly that like creature combo decks are the what we like,
Mm-hmm.
and I am 100% on board with this. Um,
And the
what are
thing
the
that sold this deck to me,
yeah, okay.
okay,
Hmm.
is the top end or whatever, the only expensive card of the deck, Knight Errant of Eos. So you just have all of these stupid like 1/1s with counters on them, and then you just convoke out this big ass thing, and like you go searching, you find all these more creatures. And it's just like, yeah, that's what makes this deck probably good, I think.
Yeah. Is it a Boros deck? I missed the beginning.
I think it's like Naya. It's one of these ones where you have to like kind of look at the
Oh, there's just so many
mana
colors in it.
base. Like the Thrill Seeker's red,
Yeah.
right? And
So
but
it's
I
red
think
and white.
otherwise it's green white. Like it's kind of a green white deck
Oh.
that's playing the Thrill Seeker in as the combo,
Hmm.
but then it does have Questing Druid because it's already committed to play some red lands and stuff.
Yeah.
So
The other thing that's really good about this deck is that your Thrill Seeker, which is the card you really care about with Agatha Soul Cauldron, sacrifices itself. So for 4 mana, if you draw it late, you can get it in your graveyard and use the cauldron to get all your creatures to do
absolutely.
the thing,
Yeah.
which is a big issue when you don't have creatures that do that. Like you very much need the Sleep Cursed Fairy to be in your graveyard for your combo to work. But when you play it for 1 mana, it's tapped and can't block, and you can't get it in your
Right.
graveyard in any.
And your opponent's not going to kill it.
Yeah. Or you have a bunch of like looters that you need to play and then have them be looting, but they can't loot on the first turn because they're tap. They can't tap. Things like that. Where you're just like, I just need a turn where you don't do anything to me just to maybe set up my combo. Like that's
Right.
what that deck felt like. So I thank you for making me feel better about Agatha's Soul Cauldron because I was very low on it going into this episode.
Yeah.
Like that card fucking sucks. Everybody's wrong. This is terrible. I was
Yeah,
excited
Jim
about
said
this.
they were like that they felt this deck was almost there. It was
Mhm.
just like it was just kind of missing a little something, and then there were such good decks in standard that are more of a sure thing that they could take.
Yeah.
But seems like a pretty sweet deck to try out at least. He also gave the tip at the start of the video that just kind of like a little mind blow a little bit was when you read Agatha's Soul Cauldron, just read it backwards. Read the bottom ability first and then
Oh,
up towards the top, and then you'll remember what the card does because it makes sense that way. They've just like templated it in a way where it's backwards. Um,
interesting. Like, I do know that they always put activated abilities at the bottom, so that
right,
makes
like
sense.
they've just done that to match their standard templating. But if you
Yeah.
read the card backwards, it's like, oh, makes sense what this card does. Whereas when you read it like top down, you're like, wait, what is going on with this card?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, because the card is a 2 mana legendary artifact. And if you read it this way, tap, exile target creature card from a graveyard, then a creature card. Sorry, when a creature card is exiled this way, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then creatures you control get with +1/+1 counters on them have all activated abilities of all the creatures in the cauldron, and then you can also spend mana as though it were mana of any color for those. Interesting.
Right. It's
It's
like actually makes sense
it
when you
makes
just read it bottom to top.
because top to bottom, it's like, all right, this first ability doesn't matter.
Weird ability. Yeah.
The second one's like, wait, you can exile things with this? And then you have to read the bottom ability and be like, oh, that makes
Gotcha.
sense.
Yeah.
Because this is definitely in the. Maybe we should have like an award for card that Zach stopped reading the fastest. And this was one of them.
Yeah. Right. It's like I don't even understand why I'd play this after the first ability, so I'm out.
So I'm out.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, this card's so good. It's going to be whatever. Um, oh, man. Okay.
As soon as he said that, I like stopped, paused the video, pulled up the card, read it back. I was like, he's right. It's much
Sorry,
better.
because that's exactly what I did right now. You got to witness that,
Yeah.
where I was like, wait, stop, let me go look at this card and read it backwards and be like,
Yeah.
you're right. I also love that Jim Davis's decks that you pointed out and the ones that he was saying we almost took were all playing red, because in my mind, Jim Davis plays red because of Mog Mondays, which is one of his.
Right. Goblins.
He plays goblins on Mondays, which is awesome, and he actually has a you can buy from him these jerseys that are Goblin Pile Driver jumping on his face, and it's like a hockey jersey. It's so
Yeah.
fucking cool.
He played some level of competitive floor hockey or something, or like not ice hockey. I mean, I'm sure he played ice hockey as well, but I think he
Mhm.
got like his college like rollerblade hockey team or something.
Oh, gotcha.
And when I first encountered him, he was on the SCG circuit, and he just had a jersey on every time he was playing.
Mhm.
Just always had with a basketball jersey, baseball jersey, or like hockey
something.
jersey. It was usually a hockey jersey,
Mhm.
usually a Rangers jersey, I think. So
Oh,
maybe he's from New York or something. But
right. I
yeah,
mean,
he seems like a great guy too, just from
he does
watching
seem
his channel.
super sweet, especially for a dude. He has a really gravelly voice. So if you like just hear an interview or something with him, you might think immediately like, oh, this guy's kind of rough around the edges, but no, he's super sweet, really great dude.
Yeah.
And it's just, should we just dedicate this entire video to him or,
For
or
sure,
our
yeah.
podcast? It's Jim Davis.
He actually played mono white at Worlds, mono white
Oh,
human.
that's
And I
great.
think he went 6-2 in standard, but he went like 1-5 in draft. So that's why his
That's rough.
tournament wasn't ideal.
Yeah, it's probably because he was also playing white, and
Yeah.
that's a lie. I don't know, but
All he
White.
said was he thought his draft decks were really good, and so that was his downfall, I think.
Oh, classic.
Yes.
Yeah. If you ever think your draft deck is good, you're screwed, which is what
Yeah,
happened to
that's an
me.
O3. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
If you're
exactly.
like, I don't know what pile I've assembled here, but I'd be
Mhm,
happy to go to get a win. That's when you
mhm.
3-0.
Yep. Every time.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, Jeff, do you have any more decks or any more things we want to talk about before we wrap this thing up?
I have one more I wanted to just quickly mention.
Yes.
This one was a different person who actually I don't really know at all.
Okay.
But I don't even know how I landed on this content creator stack. Their name is Ash Lizzle.
Okay.
Um,
That sounds familiar, actually.
yeah, I believe they're a streamer, but somehow I encountered their deck list and the
Hmm.
idea of the list. I don't love their lists particularly, but I loved the
Hmm.
idea of the list, which was
Okay.
just take like your classic, everyone's first attempt at building green black food mid
Hmm.
range. Take that deck, remove the crappy cards, and put in like braids and bargain and
Oh.
so like braids and then the 1 mana thing that you sack something and kill anything.
Hmm.
And then maybe even some of these aura makers like what's one of the things that creates an aura token in green black,
In
like the
Green
one
Black.
drop 3/2.
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember that guy's name.
Yeah,
Were they playing the enchantment, the one in a black for the one that makes a wicked roll and then you draw cards?
I think they played one copy of that. Yeah,
I think
they
that's
had a
the
lot of like fun ofs and stuff.
yeah.
uh, but that's basically the idea.
Okay.
Play green black food, remove the garbage cards, replace them with
Hmm.
braids and like stuff that lets you sack artifacts for value. And they
Gotcha.
called the deck Snacrifice because of their because it was sacrifice meets food tokens, and I was just like, I love everything about this.
That's so good. That's so funny. I was literally, as soon as you said Ash Lizzle and it sounded familiar, I went on
Yes,
Twitter to find them. And right when you said the word Snacrifice, I scrolled up to see the deck that they had posted that said Snacrifice. That's so good.
nice. I timed it perfectly. What can I say?
Oh, yeah, you're so good. Uh, Timing's everything. That's hilarious. I love that. And um, hearing that and hear you talk about streamers, which we don't often talk about streamers and
Yeah,
other people, but it has made me want to go check these people out and go see what they're doing because that sounds so sweet.
absolutely.
And I
I don't know
definitely,
much about Ash Lizzle, but if
mhm.
I mean they have a green black food meat sacrifice deck that they've called Snacrifice, so
Yeah, that's
they have to be a delight.
amazing. I love that. Uh, I saw in the thumbnail we have Tough Cookies in there with braids, so
Yeah,
that's
you
all
know
I
me. I
needed to
love
see.
Tough Cookie. It's a great
Tough
card.
Cookie's fucking good, dude.
It's a good card,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
That's where I'm at with my anvil. Like,
Hmm.
okay, I can build red black anvil a la Benton Mazda, which is what I'm
Hmm.
doing right now. I've taken out the garbage cards that we talked about last week and replaced them with a bunch of Obnixilis, of course.
Good, yeah.
Um, various different versions and
Hmm.
copies. Uh, then I could play good old
Hmm.
Vatraxa. Uh, Shout
That
out to
tracks
our
it, yeah.
Discord for that name,
Yeah.
which I haven't loved, but yeah, I've been trying it. Then I could just play like a Jund version, basically, of
Hmm.
Anvil, which gets you Tough Cookie and
Hmm.
Tyvar, and that one is nice, man. Tough
Tyvar getting a
Cookie,
tough cookie
good.
back. Yeah,
Yes, it is
that
awesome.
sounds very good.
Um, and it has come up that I can sack the Tough Cookie right away,
Hmm.
um, which doesn't sound like it would come up, but I did kind of have to do like a block sack thing, and the fact that I got the food token
Ended up,
still there actually
yeah.
mattered. Um,
That's,
it's not going to come up often. I feel like this
hmm,
is probably the one time it'll ever come up. But Tyvar's like passive lets me sack the Tough Cookie
yeah.
faster than I should have been able to. And then there's also the combo version. You can do the Obnixilis, all will be one
Hmm.
combo. And now that you have Beseech the Mirror, you don't need to play more than one. All will be one.
Yeah.
And so
All will be
like, it
one?
doesn't put it into all will be
Aftermath. Aftermath?
all will be one.
Oh,
I
the
think it's
card.
the
Sorry, sorry,
card. Sorry, the
sorry.
card. Yeah,
The
I was like,
card.
I think it's called all will be
No,
one.
no, the enchantment, the enchantment. All will be one. Yeah, 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 yeah. We got it.
Um,
We got it.
Whereas the weakness of the deck was that that card sucks. So
Hmm.
having to play more than one in order to actually have a chance at assembling the combo was the weakness.
That's true.
And then also you don't want to play 4 up Nixilis necessarily. So Beseech kind of solves both those problems.
Hmm.
Um, so that version is super fun too. I think in the end, probably the straight red black kind of aggro version is likely to be the best one,
Hmm.
but the green splash is the sweetest one.
Yeah, well, it's got the cookie in it, so.
Uh, I knew you'd get that.
I gotcha. The only question I have left is if the gingerbread cookie, the tough cookie, is in fact gingerbread. Um, Sorry, what I'm really trying to say is, what would you want it to be if it could be any cookie, not just a
Mm.
gingerbread cookie? Which cookie would you
I
pick?
like I like peanut butter cookies myself.
What the
Yeah.
fuck?
You
That's
don't
so
like peanut
funny.
butter cookies?
Not really, like not in general.
What?
Yeah,
Oh
they
my
just
god.
like if they're on a platter, I'd be like, is there anything else I could get?
Oh my god, you don't know
Yeah,
what you're talking about.
I know, but you're also gonna be mad because like one of my favorite cookies is, I mean, ginger molasses, ugh, amazing. But if we're sticking away from ginger all completely,
Yeah.
um, I would really prefer an oatmeal raisin. That's what I like.
You're just
So.
like you just objectively have poor taste in cookies.
I mean, I can accept that people think that, but no, I don't. I obviously don't agree. Um, Interesting. I wouldn't. I was thinking you're going to say snickerdoodle or something.
I don't even know what
Um,
that is. What's a snickerdoodle? Is there like a coffee flavored cookie? I bet I'd like that.
no.
Not really. Like a
there,
coffee crisp, but in cookie form.
there's a
That'd be
lot
fun.
of cookies that are meant to be dipped in coffee, but not a lot of coffee cookies
Hmm.
that taste like coffee. But
No, like espresso powder kind of.
I mean,
I bet
hey,
the Italians have one.
yeah, I'm sure. But like, how about you make that one? It's just like a chocolate chip cookie, but you
I
put
will.
espresso powder on it. That
I
sounds
will
good.
invent the espresso chip cookie.
Yeah, yeah. And then it
It
can
just
be
has chips of pure espresso.
yeah. Yuck. That's like when I was a kid the first time. My dad used to play music at a coffee shop and he bought me like a chocolate covered espresso bean, but I thought it was just
Mm.
chocolate. And then I ate it and it
Ooh,
was
it's
crunchy on the inside. And I was
a
like,
rude
what?
awakening. Yeah.
What is this? This is
Why is it
disgusting.
so bitter?
Yeah. So to this day, that's why I don't like eating espresso beans.
Oh man, that must be really weighing you down.
Yeah, it really ruins my whole life, man. Um, anyway, Jeff, I think it's time for last call.
Yeah.
So, as always on the Arena Regulars, we rate our beers from a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. This, however, has nothing to do with what tier you are in currently, because everyone is in a different tier at a different time. So don't feel bad when we say that bronze beers are trash. They're horrible. We hate them. We spit them out. We pour them on the ground and we stomp on them.
Right. Silver beers we're a little less harsh on. They're just kind of bad or boring.
Yeah.
Macrobrews might find their way into this category.
Yeah, gold beers are fine, but we don't really think about them very often.
Platinum beers are pretty solid. Yeah, these
Mhm.
are good beers, and you would drink them again.
Yeah, diamond beers are exceptional. We really like these beers, and we bring them to our friends.
And Mythic, these are the absolute best of the best. These are the beers we almost brought to Worlds. That's how good they are.
Yes. Um, Jeff, so we did happen to crack into our bag of beers this episode, which is now a new thing we're doing. In the
Yeah,
attempt to drink less beer, we've brought a second one just in case, and we will
it's
probably crack into
just
it.
just a second one. I have like a whole 12 pack behind my monitor.
What the hell? You don't tell me this, and now I look like an asshole? All right.
Yeah.
Um, Anyway, Green Velvet IPA.
Yeah.
I want to hear your thoughts first on this
Okay.
beer.
So the first thing I want to say, and I feel kind of bad about this, after our full spiel.
Hmm.
Mine was barely carbonated. It was like it was flat to be totally like
Interesting.
when you showed yours, you had the tiny amount of head on it. Mine was like
Hmm.
nothing, and a bubble here and there. And I was like, now I don't know if that's just mine or if that's how this beer is supposed to be, but it could have used a little extra CO2.
That's so funny. I mean, I did poke holes in yours just to make sure it was super flat
Ah,
when I gave it to
okay,
you.
that
Yeah.
checks out.
No, that's
Yeah,
super weird. Because it has always the way it looked when I had shown it with the head is how it
yeah.
always has looked every time I've ever had it.
That wasn't a lot of head that you had. You had like a
It's true.
solid, I
Yeah,
don't know, like
there's a bit.
quarter inch or something.
Yeah. Um, but to be fair, it doesn't taste super carbonated anyway, which
Right.
I think is part of the reason why I like it because when I'm drinking high ABVs IPAs, they tend to have that kind of flavor where they don't have a ton of carbonation, as opposed to like lower ABV. You can taste the carbonation a lot more. Um,
For sure.
but that's interesting. I wonder. No, I you probably it would have been exactly the same if we didn't talk about the CO2. But how much of that was in your mind when you're like drinking it?
I was like, I'm going to specifically analyze the carbonation level. Um,
That is actually
probably,
funny.
probably there's some like level of that, right? Where I'm like, is
Probably,
this recycled CO2? Do I notice it or not? Kind of
yeah.
thing.
I mean, there's a possibility, as well as your backup beer is probably commercially made. My backup beer was my home brew, which had
Ah,
much less carbonation. So to
now
me,
I wish I also used your homebrew as my backup beer, but
yeah.
I did not.
Um, but anyway, flavor profile, as far as IPAs go.
It was pretty good. It
Hmm.
again, like maybe it's the carbonation thing kicking in, but I felt like it's a little more mellow than a lot of the
Hmm.
other IPAs you might find on the market that kind of try to kick you in the teeth kind of thing. This
Yes.
was just like this one I would give an award to for being one of those ones. It's like, oh shit, that was 7%. You know,
Yes.
you drank. I just drank four of them. Why
Yeah.
didn't you
Yeah.
tell me that? It's a little like easy drinking, smooth, but it definitely still has those IPA flavors. So
For sure.
um, I could see this definitely appealing to that crowd. I kind of was hoping for a little more oomph from it, just knowing it's Bellwoods and knowing it's a 7%
Totally.
IPA. So I think I
I've
just had a different expectation. I guess Green Velvet does kind of imply it's smooth.
It's
So
smooth. Yeah. I
yeah.
was about to say that. And I think that might be a reason why I've like come to it more often because it's not
Mhm.
as punchy. Um, but with that being said, every time I drink this beer, I'm always uh this has happened multiple times when I buy it. I'm like, oh yeah, I like green velvet, and then I drink it and I'm like, oh right, I like it like
Right.
this, you know.
It seems
Um
exactly like that type of
mhm.
beer, you know?
Where I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, it's solid, it's solid, I like it. And then I'm like, oh yeah, it's like
Right.
fine. So it is definitely it dances the border of like platinum and gold, where I
Mhm.
like in my mind it's platinum, and when I drink it, sometimes it dips down into gold, but then I have other gold beers, and I'm like, no, I think it's fine.
That's
So,
exactly like the roller coaster my mind went through. It's
mhm,
like, oh no, this isn't doing it for me. It's gold. And then I started
mhm,
drinking. I'm like, it's pretty good. It's just not exactly what I'm looking for. And then I was like, okay, what's another gold beer that's like quintessentially gold to me?
yeah, and
And I
like
was like, this isn't that.
yeah, what we had last week, as far as IPAs went, reminded me much more of a gold beer,
Right. Yeah, we knew right away, like this is
but
gold.
this one it doesn't hit the target in the center.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I've
I'll
been
I'll just give this platinum, I think, but
it's definitely
sorry to interrupt.
platinum. No, no, you're good. It's platinum four. It is. We
Yeah,
don't often do that, but I I
we used
100%
to do it a
agree.
little more.
Yeah, but I definitely agree. It's very low platinum. Like, um, if the season renews and we just forget to drink it, like it could be gold. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, so it's very
exactly.
possible um, that like it goes there. But
But I also kind of want to bump it up or want to like it just because of the like trying to help the earth thing.
yeah, Exactly. So there is that. But
I mean, you want to
um,
help the earth, like don't make beer because it's a huge waste of water. But
that's
if they're
true.
gonna make beer
Yeah, yeah.
and they
If we want to, if we want to
want,
get into that.
given that they want to
Hmm.
try to help the earth as much as possible, I appreciate that
Hmm.
goal.
Absolutely. Anyway, low platinum for Green Velvet from
Yep,
Bellwoods. Uh, Nothing's
I'm
gonna catch up
aligned.
to their Jelly King.
Oh man,
It's
yeah. Or
impossible.
some of their barrel aged stouts when they first, like when I first had them in Toronto, they had these like
Hmm.
slight funk
Ooh,
belly aged
ooh,
barrel aged
belly.
stouts. I know.
I'm belly aging a couple
Yeah,
beers right
I
now.
belly aged it. Yeah. God.
It's so good, belly aged.
Okay, we got to start a brewery and call our beers belly aged
It
now.
just sounds like we're drinking beer and then pissing in bottles and selling that and say it's
Yeah.
belly aged beer.
No, you got to
That's
belly age
yeah,
it.
yeah. Oh, you have to belly age it yourself,
Yeah,
not
that's right.
that we belly aged it. Gotcha, gotcha.
I think belly age is like a women's hairstyle. Uh,
Belly age? Is
yeah,
that like
I
a
believe it.
length?
I think it's balayage,
Oh,
but it's like
balayage.
yeah.
Oh, you're being serious. This isn't a joke. I was waiting for like some sort of pun in there. I
No,
was
that's
thinking like,
all.
is there
That's
like
all.
a hairstyle that goes all the way to your belly and that's balayage style of hair? Um, Got you mean like some sort of
Like
product or something.
no, it's like coloring technique. It's like
Oh,
shadow. Yeah, it's pretty. I don't even know how to describe it, but
okay.
it goes dark to light gradient in an interesting way.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right, so it's like a oh, all right, okay. Balayage, belly aged.
Yeah,
Um, I like ours more, but anyway.
yeah.
Um,
So we can get a lot of the crowd that may not drink beer. They might not know about belly age. They know about balayage. We can like
mhm.
link those two.
That's true. We should spell it exactly the same way, but pronounce it
Of
belly
course, yeah, of
aged.
course,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. That's good. Get our SEO up.
yeah,
Anyway, we should just go to closing time because this is getting crazy.
yeah.
Uh, if you want to talk to us, you can find us at Arena Regulars on Instagram and other websites that we are on.
Yeah. You may also find us on Arena itself under the username Arena Regulars Podcast.
Yeah, we might be playing fairies or Snackerfice or something. Who knows?
Ooh, sacrifice, love it.
Yeah. If you want to talk to me personally, you can find me at Zulberg. That is ZeulBerg on Instagram and other websites. But Jeff, where can they find you?
Best place is on the Discord channel. I go by Regular Jeff on our Discord, and the best place to find the link to that in the show notes.
That is right. Also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify. Leave us a review there, as well as going to our YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe, all those things. It actually helps our brand out a ton. Our brand, but our podcast. So if you like this show, that helps a lot. This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you that you don't have to play Sheoldred to be successful in Standard.
Good night. All right, that's fine.